When I've been doing all my workflow explorations and videos, which you can check out with the links, I've been exploring lots of different software, but Chaos Vantage is the one that I said was most likely to be integrated into my workflow immediately. And the thing that I love about this is it's intuitive, and that makes it feel like being a photographer inside of your own virtual scene. The live feedback is awesome. It's really the best way to work. Once you get used to this, you'll never go back, and it just works really smooth. So I like it a lot. Vantage kind of opens up so many possibilities. Cosmos plus Vantage is the ultimate combo. I love what Chaos is doing. Vantage just makes sense, and it works beautifully. I love the way Vantage works. It is the epitome of a tool that takes the technical stuff and gets it out of the way and makes it just intuitive for an artist to be creative. And I love that so much because it's fun. It's fun to use. There isn't a huge learning curve. And guess what? You can integrate it into your workflow like right now. I think it's still free. You can integrate it in, and I'm going to teach you in this video how to use every tool in Vantage in just a couple minutes. It is not hard, and I think you'll see from the results how powerful, how awesome it can be. We're going to talk about some of the different ways to use it, and I want to hear from you what you think about it. I think it's changed my workflow forever already. That's what I think about it. It is amazing. So check out the video. You'll see kind of my results. You'll see a project in the works, and we'll go through it together. But also by the end, you'll be fully ready and feel fully confident that you can run Vantage as well. You'll know all the stuff because there really isn't much to it. It's actually super easy, but also powerful and awesome. So make sure and like the video if you find it useful. And I also, of course, want to hear from you about what your thoughts are on Vantage, especially after you see what I'm doing with it. I personally think it's a fantastic tool. Make sure and subscribe to the video because I've got so much more of this Archviz content coming, just all sorts of workflow things, and also got some new projects coming up that I'm going to release videos about. I'm just working on lots of things. So make sure and subscribe so you don't miss any of that. I'm going to start with my advanced exterior scene, which you can download the basic elements of. So you can get this building model and all this street stuff and download it for yourself. So you can try it out in Vantage as well and follow along, or just use it for whatever you want. So follow the links to grab that download or any of my other project downloads. Now with Vantage, I have the Vantage loaded, so I have the toolbar over here. And first we're going to explore Live Link and how that works. Live Link is super useful. All you got to do is push that button and Vantage will open. You'll see that when Vantage opens, it will make sure that V-Ray GPU is your render engine in 3ds Max, and you can automatically change it to that, and then Vantage will start going, and you'll see it loading down here. Okay, boom, now we have a GPU rendering of our scene, and what's cool is we can now navigate around and do whatever we want. Okay, so if we want this view, we can navigate to here, which you can do by holding down the right mouse button on your mouse and kind of looking around like this. You can also use your scroll wheel to move in and out. You can also use the WASD controls while the right mouse button is pressed in order to navigate. So there's multiple different ways to navigate in here. We'll look at those kind of things as we go. But we can set up a different view here by navigating to where we want and saying create camera. And then you'll see we have these tabs over here, camera, post, and render. Okay, these are important. On the other side, we have objects, materials, and lights. We'll look at all this. And then we have these kind of, these are basically like on and off switches up here, plus some transform tools and a couple other things that we'll look at. With this one, the camera's too wide angle, so we can go into the camera tab and we can change that. Here you can change the resolution, but the focal length is what we want to look at here. We could change it to 40. We'll just look at the tower flat sign here. Like that. You can see we have nice depth of field going on because this is checked. If you uncheck it, it goes away. But in depth of field, we can, of course, adjust all the settings in here. We have bokeh effect going on. We have focus distance, which is a number, but you can also set it using this. Pick the point you want to focus on, so we could actually focus on these plants up front if we wanted. Or we can focus right on the sign. And then we can make the aperture size really large, like 50 millimeters, to get a ton of blur going on. 200 millimeters, so you can see the kind of effect that that gives. Okay, and then you can see that our vertical lines are not being corrected, but we can change that just like in Max. Okay, and then we can update this view by doing that. Now that's updated, and we can actually change between the two views now. So we can do this, we can do this. Pretty awesome how fast that works. And you can actually animate that too and record that as a video, which is also awesome. So basic camera motions can be recorded in here extremely easily and very quickly to create basic animations. Okay, and you saw we had exposure value in here too. I mean, we can change all the regular camera stuff in here, which is great. In post, this is where I wish we had more controls. I mean, we can control the bloom of things. So if we just exaggerate that, it's going to look like that. Really, the only other thing you could do in here is add a LUTs file. And I can do that by going here and just picking one. And you can turn up and down how much that will affect it. So with it fully on, ooh, I don't like that LUTs file. Okay, that's pretty dramatic, but you can turn it down. And then in the render tab, we will just have controlling the number of bounces and things like that. A couple other things you may want to turn on and off. And that's all these tabs over here. So there's a couple things up here. So you can pause rendering. You can turn on and off opacity maps. You know, that's gonna change things a lot on the trees. We go over here. And remember, this camera's already saved, so I can go to a new one. Now, you can hold down Shift to navigate faster through here. So if I'm looking at these trees, you can turn on and off the opacity maps. And that will obviously speed up your rendering. They're off, but you want them on for a final rendering. You can turn collisions on so that you actually run into things. Okay, and that's useful if you're navigating around. You can then do a free look where you're just kind of a person standing on the ground and you can walk around and you'll run into stuff. You can actually walk up stairs and things like that too. Okay, so this is full on just walking through the scene. And collisions are on, so I run into things. I mean, pretty awesome, right? It's not like UE5 where it's super smooth, 60 frames a second, but it is pretty good. And for Archviz artists, to me, it's perfect. It's the perfect balance of real time. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing, I think. So I can turn all that stuff off now. A couple other things up here. These are selection tools, so we can actually change things in here. Oh, so we can't use this in here because we're in Live Link. So there's no moving and transforming here. Because we're in Live Link, all we'd have to do is move it in the 3ds Max scene. And then it's going to update here, obviously. Okay. So we'll look at this stuff when we're not in Live Link. You can, well, Cosmos too. So let's just look at these last few things over here. So if we go here, and we're still in Live Link here. If we go to the lights, we can enable fog, and this just puts in basically a basic fog. It isn't grabbing fog settings you have from 3ds Max. Although if you have fog on in 3ds Max, it will turn these on too and bring them in. But it isn't the exact same thing. So these are separate controls. And it's basically like long range fog versus short range fog. So the short range stuff is like right up in your face, and you can change it to, let's say, 0.2 kilometers for density, and you can make it start farther away. You can make it only go 10 meters high. Okay, so you can do a lot of different things with that. What it's not doing is like a true volumetric fog, I don't think. This is more of a long range fog. So you can see it's just putting haze in the background. If you put it like this, you can see that haze back there. It's actually kind of nice, but you can also change this to 5 kilometers, make it even more hazy, right? Okay, so you have that ability. And then with the Live Link, you have just basically lights on and off. And any controls for the intensity of these lights would be controlled in 3ds Max. So as an example, we'll take the red light and we'll turn it up to 1000. Okay, so that's all working via live link. There's also materials and objects, but we will not have as much control over this. I mean, we can turn things on and off. No, we won't have as much control over this with the live link because everything will be controlled in 3ds Max. So I find this live link extremely useful if I'm starting a project, putting materials on, wanting to set up views, all that stuff, and still getting my model right in 3ds Max, but wanting to get instant feedback on how it's going to look in the end. Right, so it's extremely useful for that. Let's look at the export option, which gives us a lot more flexibility and power within Vantage itself. Okay, I'm going to use this export scene, and what that does is wrap it into a VR scene and then just opens it in Vantage. I'm going to open up a VR scene I've already exported, this exact one, and just open it up in Vantage so that give my computer a break here. I'm gonna melt something, I'm sure of it. It's really struggling to have all this open and record my screen at the same time. So I'm just gonna open it. Give me a second here, close down the Max scene because we don't need it anymore. They will be totally separate. Okay, and this one I have a bunch of different cameras set up, just like I was setting it up in the live link, but this one is detached, so we'll have more control. But just to look at some of my views I set up. And the thing that I love about this is it's intuitive. And that makes it feel like being a photographer inside of your own virtual scene, which I love photography. I love instant feedback on renderings. I mean, all this is it just feels so cool, right? And I struggled to find some good views, but the cool thing is that you're exploring views that you'd never explore otherwise, right? Like some of these things, you just wouldn't take the time to set these all up and render them out to see if you could get them to work. And if you did, it would take a lot of time, because you can't see what you're doing until you render something. And the other thing is that this actually shows you what needs to be fixed. Like, for example, this is missing a material right here. So that's actually extremely useful too. It's just the live feedback is, I mean, it's awesome. It's really the best way to work. Once you get used to this, you'll never go back. And Vantage really packages that capability into a very nice UI and everything, and it just works really smooth. So I like it a lot. Okay, so these are all just different views. Of course, we can adjust them however we want. And you can see my model needs to be fleshed out a lot more in order to get a lot of these views working. But that's the cool thing, is that I can see a cool view and then be like, okay, I'm gonna flesh out this part of the model to make it work. Like I could put interior stuff in here. I could put guys standing right there. I could make that model of the window much better. All those kind of things, and Vantage kind of opens up so many possibilities. Okay, so let's look at some of the other options we have available in here just to cover all the tools. Okay, each of the objects, I mean, we have the objects in here. If we go into select mode, which we can do now, you know, we can do this, and we can, like, for example, we can turn off this group, just turn off the lamp altogether, and back on, off, on. Okay, so we can do that. We can also move the lamp if we want. We can move that group by selecting there and moving it. Okay, all these lights you can select and move if you wanted. Okay, pretty cool, pretty cool, pretty cool. Now, I'm not gonna, I mean, you can rotate, you can scale, you can do all that stuff. You can even snap, move the pivot, navigate around cursor ray hit. These are navigation tools here. So where that means if this is on, that's just how you navigate around things like this. So it's a ray hit. So you do that by holding down Alt and the middle mouse button, and you can tumble around. Okay, this is the precision to make it so that when you're trying to get into a fine camera view, you're being more precise and it's not jumping so much. One other cool thing we can do to cover all these tools up here is Cosmos. We can open up the browser right here. It'll open here, and then you can just drag things into your scene using Cosmos. Okay, so what do we want to drag in? We can just take this lady on a bike, download her, and we will just drop her right in there. So you can do all your Cosmos stuff directly in Vantage. There she is. And you can move her, you can rotate her. And I mean, these tools will all be familiar to you if you work in Max at all. Okay, so that's awesome. I mean, Cosmos plus Vantage is the ultimate combo. I love what Chaos is doing. Again, I've said that already, but I love it. Okay, what else? So those are the objects. The materials, we can go in and select any materials in our scene. We can apply them to different objects. So for example, we could drag this green window surround and put it there if we wanted. I don't want to do that. But you can also go into Cosmos and find new materials and apply them to objects. So like once you have your model, you can go in here and just really compose any shot you want with whatever materials and all that stuff. Now with the lights, because we've got a complete VR scene here, we can now control all our lights, very similar to what we would do with a light mix. Okay, so any group of objects, any group of lights, it's really instances of lights. So grouped with two other lights, those are all instants to each other. So if I turn whatever light this is up to 200, I can't see it. Let's see, we need to find a light we can actually see. So we turn it off, enabled. Okay, right there. That one's got some light leak, so I'm seeing some problems with that one, which would be great because now I can go back into Max and fix it. But there you go. So it's turning up all those lights in real time, obviously. Okay, so you have full control over all your lights, and this scene has a lot of lights, so you can kind of fold all down and scroll through all the different lights. Again, I should be better about naming my lights, obviously, because now I have no idea which light is which. And here, if you go to compact, this is actually better. Now you can see this is just like light mix, right? This is great. I like it in compact mode because it's used to light mix, and you know from my other videos that I love light mix. Light mix is my favorite, and now Cosmos plus Vantage is my new favorite. Okay, so the fog we looked at. The environment is the thing that we can adjust up here. So this is basically just reading my HDRI, or it exported my HDRI dome light from 3ds Max, and we can adjust that to different angles if we want. There you can see it changing up there on the building. So you can put it at whatever angle you think works best for your scene. It came in at 218, so that's where it is. That's where I'm going to leave it. You can of course change the intensity too, all the way up. Okay, you can even load a different environment there if you want. All right, so this gives you full access when you have the exported VR, the detached VR scene in here. You have full access to change materials, objects, turn lights on, up and down. If it's a live link, then you control all that in Max. Okay, that's basically it. The only other things are this turns on and off bloom. This turns on and off your LUTs file. You have an overall exposure here, and you have the denoiser up and down. Actually, I like denoiser not at 100%. It smooths things out too much, you know what I mean? Anyway, personal preference there. So the last thing we'll look at is just the basic functions of the animation in here. So if we're going to animate, it's very easy to do that. Let's just look at it. We can turn on this is toggling the animation editor on and off. This is what you'll see when you first open it, and you just see a little plus here, and you can say, I set up 2 cameras that I want to animate. So I just want to animate from here to there. That's it. Super simple. But you can animate any transition between cameras here. Okay, but the way you do it is you just say plus, insert camera 16, and then the plus moves, and you say insert camera 17. And it automatically puts a transition in between here. You can change the, what do you call that? The transitions in and out, the smoothing. I'm going to put it on linear, and I'm going to say set duration to 4 seconds. Okay. So now I just have a transition between those 2 cameras. When I start it, it goes back to the beginning, and I just do a simple animation like that. Okay, so you can obviously get creative in here. You can add also in here a pause. Okay, so it's really just a camera, transitions in between those cameras, and adding pauses. So that's the basic way. So you can either use this to create basic animations. You can use this to preview what an animation is going to kind of look like. You can import animated cameras from 3ds Max and then render them in here. Or you can set up cameras in here and send them back the other direction. So there's a lot of different things you can do here, but I mean, I've already used this a ton professionally for just doing really quick animations. Like, oh, I want to see a little fly around of this. Well, that's actually super easy. Like, I could render that little animation move I just did in probably, I don't know, maybe 6 minutes or less. So to spit this out, it's very easy. You just say This is how you spit out stills too, by the way. But you just come in here, set the resolution, you save it to an output file, and you tell it to either save an image sequence or a video or both. And you set up your resolution, your frames per second, and boom, start. It'll start going. Whatever you have down here. If you can also do it as a snapshot, like I said. Any of these can be generated as more polished renderings. So you have a ton of leeway here. So, I mean, those are all the tools. Let's talk about what this means for Archviz. Okay, I don't know if you're as excited about Vantage as I am, but hopefully you saw some of the capabilities, some of the power that it can bring to your workflow. I think it's incredible, especially like I said with Cosmos. As a team, Cosmos plus Vantage, it's made my workflow so much more efficient and so much more intuitive, which, as I've said a million times, I love intuitive rendering. So I want to know what you guys think. I do want to mention a few other things about Vantage tests that I've done that I didn't show here, but I have tested Vantage with humongous scenes. It brought in all the XREFs, it brought in all the polygons, it brought in all the proxies, it brought in all my forest pack foliage, everything, just like it was in 3ds Max, it brought it in. And I could navigate around it, I could set up cameras, I could do everything. To me, that's amazing. So being able to walk through a project like that with probably over 1 billion polygons total, if you count all the foliage and everything. Oh, definitely over 1 billion polygons. The fact that it can do that is mind-boggling to me. I don't know how Vantage works exactly with the Vrscene and everything, but it's giving, instead of giving me a bunch of cheated imagery to make it so that it's fast and real time, somehow Vantage is like, it's obviously not 60 frames a second or 90 frames a second or anything like that, but it is giving me like a full V-Ray rendering almost instantaneously, right? So honestly, that's what Archviz artists are probably going to need more of, rather than being able to navigate it like a video game. They're going to want to be able to just have instant feedback on imagery that's going to be produced. And so to me, that's why Vantage is already in my workflow. And like I said, I'm never going back. I mean, this is the way to go as far as I'm concerned. For the kind of stuff that I'm doing, it's kind of perfect. So I love it. Let me know what you guys think, and please like this video if you think this has been useful, and subscribe to my channel here because I've got a bunch more stuff coming. I'm hoping to do a project from start to finish and release it on YouTube incrementally, coming up really soon. Let me know if you have questions or other things that you'd like to learn about. I love your feedback. As always, thanks for watching.